It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality. I'll be your host tonight, Christy Powell. Joining me for the first time ever in front of the camera, is that right?
Yes, the first time ever.
Yes, our call screener, Michele.
Hello.
And of course, from Strip Storytelling, we have Booksy Booty.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was going to be vodka, but there is, and that really helped.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I should lead with that from now on.
Yeah, you
Hey,
should.
Booksy, do you want vodka? Yeah.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
it you're asking me to do?
And then, then the volunteer stuff comes a little bit smoother, right?
It does.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm just saying I'm enjoying vodka. That was actually my whole statement that I was making.
Oh, okay. Yeah, full
Sometimes
stop.
I feel
Vodka's
joy
great.
so greatly that I have to speak about it.
I appreciate that. You know, we need more of that kind of effervescence in today's modern political discourse, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what I bring.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking to Booksy about stripped storytelling, which is this very interesting Austin burlesque-esque project, and we'll be getting into the details of that as well as some more fun. We're going to be honoring that dramatic reading and talking about queer spaces and just kind of continuing our discussion about Pride Month and all of this kind of good stuff. We hope that you'll give us a call in. We're going to be here at 512-686-0279. It's 512-686-0279. We do have lines open right now. And with that, let's jump into it. What is strip storytelling? What is your best elevator pitch for what y'all do?
Yeah, I'm super curious.
Strip storytelling is a live, nude literary experience focusing on community activism.
Wow.
Oh, so-
Okay.
Rolls off the tongue.
What is your activism?
Well, we get to choose starting from just the rebrand. So the show used to be run by something called Naked Girls Reading, which is a nationwide organization. HQ is in Chicago. And the Austin story goes that in 2013, someone who I don't know got the franchise rights and then gave them to someone else who I don't know, who gave them to someone else who I do know, who auditioned me, and then once I joined the cast, wasn't available to produce. So I was producing like fourth hand, and that felt a little tenuous. I like rules. I was like, I'm still paying HQ, but I don't know exactly what's going on. But that's where we started. And once I joined the cast, I really loved the shows. It's so powerful to be with someone completely uninhibited and in the nude who isn't there trying to get anything out of you, is just allowing you to experience them. So I love that part of it. But I wanted more. I'm like Ariel. I need it all.
The mermaid?
The mermaid, yeah, you know.
My daughter loves Ariel.
Oh, I don't know that it's appropriate to bring her to strip storytelling, but I bet
No.
she'd love me if she met me.
She would.
That's-
She's 17, so
Oh,
I mean,
for
she's
sure.
not like a little girl.
Yeah.
But she still likes Ariel, so
I mean, I don't feel
doesn't?
like that goes away, especially if you started with a crush on her. Like,
maybe
that
it could.
sticks.
It could.
Yeah, I have like some very complicated feelings about Jasmine, but you know,
Oh, okay.
there's a lot to dive into there, and my therapist is hard at work on the subject. But I recognize that those things don't just go away.
Right.
You know, sometimes fires don't burn out just because you're done playing with them.
I don't think Jasmine was the problem. I think the way that she was presented
Sure,
might have been, but let
sure.
us not judge her as an artist.
Yeah, let's not hold it against her. And, you know, once she's all of a sudden hypnotized and chained up, what did that do to my 8-year-old
man.
testosterone-filled male brain? I don't know.
Probably wonderful things.
Yeah,
You're 8,
Things you're grateful
I mean,
for
maybe
now.
when you were a little older than 8, or was it 8?
It started to make an impression. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
You were an early bloomer.
No, actually,
Or is it
no.
8?
That's a totally standard age to be exploring sexual
I
feelings.
had a girl, so I mean, I know girls and boys are a little different, so
Well, and the sheets are a little bit cleaner, and so there's not as much information. There's not that
Yeah.
feedback that parents are getting.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not usually that explicit. Usually what you would experience is like, oh, there's a kid like humping their favorite toy or just
Favorite
like
pillow.
being really aggressive on the seesaw.
Yep.
And exploring that stimulation.
sure.
I have no idea where this started.
Yeah, that took a
We-
very
yeah.
interesting and potentially like
Dangerous
legal
right turn,
implication turn. But so to draw it back, I mean, I've had the privilege of seeing y'all perform in an earlier incarnation when it was still Naked Girls Reading. You were over at the Salvage Vanguard, and the air conditioning was terrible, and it was August, and everybody was
Are you sure
sweaty
it
under
wasn't
the
just
lights.
the bodies making you really hot?
I mean, that was certainly a factor. It definitely played into it. But now that it's June here in Austin, it's really hard to deny the power of the sun.
It's true.
With that being said, my partner broached it to me as, hey, you know how we've been exploring the world of burlesque? We had, for the first time, had been to a couple of different burlesque shows, and so this felt like a continuation of that. And she pitched it to me in this like very conservative relationship that was like only beginning to broach the idea of including a more expansive sexuality. And so, I mean, previously for our whole lives, it had been, I mean, the idea of looking at naked women that I wasn't married to was devious. And so we were like very excited about the opportunity, I guess, to embrace these things. So we'd been seeing some burlesque shows, and it was great. And there was that tenuous grasp of like, well, it's art, right? So it's not erotic. So it's not wrong, because any eroticism is wrong. But if it's art, then it's okay.
Right, but is it erotic art or is it just art?
Well, for this upcoming show, our theme is fantasy, which could mean like, Tolkien fantasy, or could mean like whatever your fantasy is that you want us to read. So I don't know. I don't want to demean your experience, but it's for sure fucking erotic.
Yeah,
that's what I would
this
think.
was my early Christian gymnastics, if you will, of like how to justify and validate these choices that I was making. And I've gotten away from that clearly, obviously, if you've seen this show. Big fan of sex, big fan of erotica, big fan of just expression in these different spaces. But for us, we had to sort of justify the decision to go. And I was, she told me about it, and I was like, okay, so we go, and they read to us, right? And she was like, yes. And I was like, so it's a book on tape. And she was like, yeah, but they're naked. And I was like, so we could just like pull up Google image search boobs and then put on a book on tape, and it's the same experience. She's like, no, it's
nowhere
art.
near the same.
Yeah, no. I think whenever you're somewhere live, it's always going to be a different experience. That would be
Absolutely.
like comparing it to listening to a CD versus going to see a live show.
No question. But I guess I'm just trying to paint a picture for the audience of what it actually means to be sitting in a chair watching strip storytelling.
Yeah. So what did it feel like?
It felt hot. It felt sweaty. I don't mean to harp on that.
Our new location has really great AC. In fact, we've never
That's worth the cost of
performed
admission
when it
on its
wasn't
own.
freezing. And it's a lot colder
that would
when
be
you're
like-
naked.
Yeah,
But we do
that
it
would
for
be
you.
a question that I would, because I would freeze my butt off. Like, how do you be up there like cold?
Well, also the lights are warm, but it's not really a problem when you're cold, when you're naked, if the point is being naked. Like, people just notice it more. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't worry about
These are tricks of the trade.
Yeah, I would have to be.
I mean, we
We're getting
glitter all
insider
of the
information.
stuff. So if it's glittered and hard and
no, but I mean you as a
protruding-
person.
Oh, you just...
You suffer for your art.
Suffer for your art.
I mean, we can have blankets up there. We can
Oh,
like
you can
cuddle
have
into
blankets.
them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that would be a thing. So I was wondering about that. And
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
when it was non-air conditioning, what'd you do about the sweat? Like,
Oh, vulva sweat is just a thing that's going to happen. Like, no matter how cold you are, when
You
you're
can go ahead
performing.
and
that-
clip that. Yeah, let's go ahead and include that.
Yes. I mean, there's just like rivulets of glitter because you also glitter your vulva. Yeah.
it's like just pouring down off you, and it's like,
Yeah. We just wash a lot of things
I would
afterward.
imagine so.
Fine.
It's a lot of laundry.
So what happens, y'all?
Yeah, it does happen, yes.
And if we're going to be sex positive, we have to be sweat positive
Me
because so what happens during
because
sex?
sex and sweat very
Yeah, they
very
kind of go hand
connected.
in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least
Unless you're
when
in
you
really
do it
cold
well,
air conditioning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think despite anyone's best efforts, there's going to be some sweat.
We'll have to consult
shouldn't
some
say.
medical
I don't know.
professionals. I'm not an expert,
Some
but it
people
seems
don't
pretty reasonable.
sweat, so maybe
They're
when
rare.
those,
They are pretty rare.
I sweat when I have sex with myself, so I don't even feel like
I mean, the
it's
people that don't sweat, they're rare.
Yeah.
People that don't sweat are very rare.
true.
Sweaters, they're all over the place. Like
I
everybody
remember
sweats.
what question you initially asked, and it was what is the community activism?
Yeah, that was the original question. I mean, I never answered it.
Okay. I think the best answer I can give is the whole rebrand was about community activism and about creating a space that was already sexy and already sex positive and already had an audience, and saying, now we want not only diversity and inclusion, but liberation. So we had this old company that we worked with that we loved, and they brought us so many places, but as so many of us are learning just in navigating the world right now, you can take a space that is not intentionally inclusive, and you can try to make it inclusive. And there's a lot of work that you have to do in trying to rebuild something as you go. And we said, we love you. We're just going to build a different thing that is similar and is really grateful and pays homage to you, but from the very beginning is a liberation space that is inclusive and intentional and radical and queer. And that just goes into everything we do. Basically, I'm just this annoying producer that's like, but how do we make it more intersectional? I love that, that standard photography that we're using for the background, but what if it were a Black person or a disabled person? Or how do we make sure that all of our show is as accessible, not just inclusive, but also accessible for everyone who wants to be either part of it or watch it.
Right.
So, and then maybe someday we'll raise money for people if we can get enough audience members. So come watch us be naked, and then we'll spend money on important things.
Yeah, that was my other question.
Vulva sweat for important things.
Yeah.
It's like, is how do you do advertising? Like, how do you get the word out to get people to come see your shows?
You would be amazed how much people want to hear me talk about being naked. Maybe you wouldn't be amazed. It's not a problem.
I mean, I think we've got a couple hundred folks right now already tuning in.
who are fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes up everywhere I go, and I think this maybe has to do with, I would have to ask my co-producers how they experience this, but I just live a slutty life, and people get that vibe sort of immediately upon encountering me, and so they're like, what do you do? What are you working on? Here's my business card for strip storytelling. Come to our show.
I don't know if I really like that word. I
love it. But I'm here to hear what you don't like about it.
Because I don't think anybody can really be a slut. You either enjoy it or you don't. It doesn't mean you're a slut.
Oh, I just think of slut as meaning I have a lot of sex in a lot of different contexts.
And that's fine, but I think the slut is used as derogatory, and I don't find
Yeah,
it.
but so was queer.
Yeah, I guess.
It's
So
been
as-
reclaimed in a
take it
lot of
back.
ways.
Yeah.
So you're trying to take the word back.
I don't even feel like I'm trying. I just feel like, yeah, that's the thing that describes me. Like, if someone else sees it as
If you look up
pejorative,
slut in the dictionary, who do you have a picture of?
Particularly, comfy slut is just totally my aesthetic. Like, I don't like wearing clothes. So if I have to, it's not going to be a lot of them, and they're going to be very comfortable. And I'm cool with all of those associations, but I was raised by wolves. So
Oh, no.
yeah, they were well-meaning. I love them. It's a very liberated space now.
Yeah, I was kind of raised by wolves, too, but yeah. Mine was the opposite experience, where it was like they were alcoholics, recovering from alcoholics. So it was just like, you go, you do. So it wasn't like...
Yeah, so my parents, and this actually really does play into the way that we're structuring strip storytelling, is I come from a lot of people who at the time self-identified as prostitutes. We would call them sex workers now, but they were prostitutes, or we might call them club dancers now, but they self-identified as strippers. And my parents were drug dealers. I'm realizing now I'm probably not going to tell my mom about this show.
About this being out here.
It's fine. She knows. It's not a secret. But there were so many things, like the idea of drug dealers or prostitutes or strippers, as we would have called them in the 80s and 90s, that the generic American cultural context was so anti. But it was just like, hey, Aunt Lisa.
That's weird, because, my parents were kind of almost the same. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't drug dealers, but they were, they also, did some pretty shady things.
I think that in my raising, no one was focused on recovery. So it wasn't like, oh, that's the bad thing. And
Yeah,
we're
there
gonna
wasn't
get
that
better. It was just
label
like,
on it.
oh, this is our hustle right now.
Yeah.
Well, and it puts you in this space where you don't have all of these outside negative associations, or when you see them and they're butting up against what you know of your family as being, good or bad or what have you.
just
But
follow.
you're free to have those associations, and so when there's this outside force looking down on it, it makes it a lot easier to just kind of put that away, which is just to bring it back around. Now, as we talk about sexuality and sluthood or sluttiness or whatever, however we want to frame it, it doesn't have to have that negative connection that for so many folks it has for so long.
Like I have a really cute keychain. I'm not going to show you right now because it'll and
Yeah,
I will anger some people. But it's glittery star that has all like these iridescent colors behind it, and it just says slut. It's just like this.
Just in a
It's like,
delightful
"Mija."
little way.
Yeah, kind of like how I know in Latinx spaces we're really reclaiming like cabrona and chigona, that are curse words in English, and maybe you would say when you were angry at somebody, but it's just like, oh yeah, I'm a fucker. That feels right. That feels good.
Take it back.
Yeah. Also, as part of getting to say women get to be angry, or women get to feel and want and do all of the things. And maybe
yeah, for
they're
sure.
shitty things, but women get to do them just as much as men.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So,
I'm 100% there.
yeah.
Well, what is it about the concept of strip storytelling that really draws you in? I mean, we're pro-sex, we're pro-literature, I suppose. But what is it about, sitting there and reading The Great Gatsby in this sex-positive space or in this erotic way that is meaningful for you?
So for me personally, I'm going to say for the audience, from the audience perspective, which I've been on both sides. It's not just an audiobook, because an audiobook is somebody reading, but they're not reading to you. They're not looking you in the eye. They're not pausing when you gasp to make sure that you're okay.
There's
They're
a sense
not.
of intimacy with the audience.
Oh, so much so. And I've had so many audience members come up and say that they felt empowered to do non-sex related things, not naked related things, but just because they saw people sitting in their power and not pulling any punches. Like, we're nude up there. If we have to scratch something, if something makes a note, like, there's no hiding anything. And the readers speak to each other and speak to the audience. We might stop and be like, I don't know, what do you guys think about this? Or what do y'all folks think about this? Because there are more than just males in the audience. And so it is just entrancing. Like, if this happened for you, remember when you were little and someone would read you a story, right? Like, it could be like Good Night Moon, which is not an entrancing story. It doesn't even like rhyme very well. But it was just that someone was close to you and they were reading to you, and it was a shared experience. And now here are these gorgeous goddesses on stage doing it, covered in glitter, hopefully biodegradable. We're working on it. And choosing selections particularly because they think they will mean something to you. So our selections will just span the gamut. And so you're going to come and you're going to be turned on, and you're going to be educated, and you're going to be confused, and you're going to love it all.
Yeah, that was another
Turned on,
question I had.
educated, and confused. That's pretty similar to the mission of this show,
Absolutely.
actually. I don't know why it took us so long to get you on.
So, like, who makes the selections?
The readers do. The producers do have to approve them. So like our last show was sci-fi themed. And so we had like 3 different readers submit Douglas Adams, and we were like, love it. Totally understand. We need more diversity. So we'll approve it, but we have long enough before the show that we can, make sure that they all fit together. But it's just the readers. The performers are amazing. The women, and now it was specifically just people who were assigned female at birth and still identified as female that were allowed on stage in our previous iterations.
Naked
but now,
girls
it was
reading.
naked
Now
girls
we're
reading.
transitioning to strip storytelling.
And that was part of the intentionality behind that rebrand. Because girls are great, and we love the word girls. We just want everyone to be
More
able to be
than
on
just.
stage. Yeah. And I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. It happens to me all the time.
I feel like this is the part where I'm like supposed to kind of, wrap it up or make it business. It's not what you're going to get here. It's
Yeah.
not what you're going to get at the show. Like, If we fumble, we just fumble. And then we're like, y'all, give me a minute. Okay, now let's talk about Douglas Adams.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it as being as sexy and erotic and these different things, but I guess as we're getting into this conversation, the vulnerability and the openness, the exposure of it is almost more compelling in a certain way.
It is. We could read, the phone book. We could just... Even some of the audience favorite parts is just when the readers are talking to each other on stage, to see people of all kinds of bodies, all kinds of backgrounds, comfortable with themselves and each other in front of an audience is so compelling and so freeing.
It is a little bit like watching somebody walk across like a bed of coals, just in the sense that there is an admiration, I think, and a little bit of, oh, I could never do that, or could I? Maybe I could. Could I do that? You know, that type of inner monologue.
And people end up feeling very much like they can, because after every show, people are like, can I come do this? And we're like, yes, absolutely, come do this with us.
Oh, no, there's no way I could ever do it. But, because I'd be like, I've like very, very body shy, you know? Came from my childhood.
Those damn wolves.
You didn't see enough Jasmine to make you...
Maybe not. However, I congratulate you on, having that empowerment about yourself. That's awesome.
Thank you. Well, and something that we want is to be able to work with performers that usually is the line. So here in Austin, we're not allowed to show nipples on people who were assigned female at birth where they serve alcohol and charge for it. So in Texas, that's a strip club. And if you don't have a strip club license, you lose your liquor license, and it's a big old deal. So our show isn't burlesque, but it's probably the closest thing people have to compare it to. And burlesque performers never show their nipples. That's a thing. It's weird how dressed you feel in like a floss G-string and your pasties.
And you feel... Sure.
And so having them off, a lot of performers are like, I just don't know if I can do it. And part of our goal is to say like, hey, if you can't do it, let's get you here and hosting or whatever makes you feel more liberated, and also allows you to feel like your whole body, every bit of it, and every presentation is so amazing, and people want to see it because they do.
Yeah, but it was your first time, like, did you feel like super vulnerable?
I didn't personally. But so my first performance, I was with 3 veterans who had been on stage so many times, and it's such a hype place backstage. We're just like, yes, glitter the nipples, put the stuff on things. It's really affirming as a performer as well as anybody else who's involved. So also you walk out like semi-dressed, and then you disrobe in whatever way works for you. And
That's going to be another one of my questions.
Yeah. Depending. So my first show, I came out in a robe. My second show, I came out in thigh-high pleather boots and a cropped leather jacket. So really all the goods were showing. But, there's something to taking it off. And then my last show, I just came out stark raving nude and just stared people down as I walked out on stage. And it just becomes very normal and very happy. And what my experience as a performer is, what I think about is, am I speaking loud enough? Can you hear me? Can you hear what I want you to hear in this reading? Are you going to be changed by this in any way? And I just happen to be naked.
Yeah, so your headspace isn't fixated on the things that you can't control, which is the way your body looks, the way other people react to your body, the way you sweat or whatever else is going on. And I think there's something very interesting and beautiful about being able to, I guess, kind of separate ourselves from that type of self-consciousness. We want to be plugged into our bodies,
adjust
but
your shirt to cover your
right.
It's like, boom.
Yeah.
Here are my rolls.
There are my rolls.
I mean, there's a certain amount of work maybe to being clothed. There is a certain sense of presentation and a certain sense of decorum. If I were to stand up right now, decorum dictates that I'm supposed to button my jacket. I don't know who made the rule that men's sports coats are supposed to be open when they sit and closed when they stand. But
that might
for
be an
some
old
reason,
rule.
it is an old rule, and it was in all the movies I watched when I was a kid,
looks so
and now
sexy,
it's who I
though,
think I'm
when you
supposed to be.
unbutton
No,
to sit.
it's not like a thing anymore, I don't believe.
It's really not, but we get these these rules in our head, and that's kind of my point, is that we have these thoughts about, this is supposed to be tucked, this is supposed to be covered, the sock is supposed to be this length, the belt is supposed to match this or that, and getting away from that does create a level of intimacy, I think, in an important way.
And in a fat-phobic society, most of the female performers that I work with have been raised to believe that when you sit down, you grab a pillow and you put it in front of your belly, and your core is very vulnerable. It's not something, and we just, when we're on stage, we're like, ba-boom, ba-boom, like, here it is.
To say nothing about, crossing your legs and purity culture and the way we look at women and their sexuality and the way that their posture is supposed to indicate their character in so many pieces of our society.
Yeah. We give 0 fucks to those messages.
0 fucks? That's just the right amount.
We save our fucks for the kinds of fucks we like.
Right? Okay. Well, I have about 100 more questions. So many of them are still entitled, okay, but like, what is it?
Yeah.
But why?
Not necessarily what is it, but like to dive in deeper.
Yeah.
And get our viewers interested in going, because it seems like an interesting thing.
And I very much want to get to some of those and even tell folks how they can find you and how they can even check out some of your online presentations coming up. But before that, I would like to run to the phones and check in with Evil Meatloaf in PA. Evil Meatloaf, you are on the air. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you all doing?
Not too bad. What kind of questions were on your mind?
Well, I'm new to the channel. I was a big fan of the Atheist Experience. I've been listening to that for a long time, and then Talk Heathen.
Hey, glad to hear it.
Noticed your channel, and I figured I'd check it out. A little confused. Secular sexuality, is that the call screener? I asked the same question. Maybe you can answer it too. Is that like just not missionary? You can do other shit, Not missionary, other shit. That would be like the tagline, I think. Or in the same way that I need to start telling our guests that there may or may not be vodka available, I should tell our viewers that, hey, there's more than missionary. And we're going to talk about it. I would say just I'll let you thumb through our archive and learn more about who we are and what we do. But in short, the idea is that one of the biggest suppressants, one of the biggest damages to our sex lives often comes from religious spaces, often comes from these ideas that our bodies were built by God for a very specific purpose, and that purpose and that God tends to look like whoever's telling you that these are what the rules are. And when we get away from God, we kind of have to rebuild our sexuality in a lot of ways in order to have any freedom in the bedroom and outside of it. So what we talk about each and every week is just about how to heal from those experiences, how to change our society so that fewer people are being damaged by things like asinine bathroom bills and different understandings of what's acceptable partnering and all of these sorts of things. And priests.
Yeah, well,
and priests, yes.
Yes.
Protection from priests.
Yeah, I remember thinking in the Catholic Church with all the kneeling and the sitting and the standing and the kneeling, I remember thinking, well, I wish the priest would just pick a position and fuck me already. I mean, what's he waiting on? That was a joke. I stole that from someone else. But no, I think that people should be, there is a disconnect between how males are perceived. If a male goes out and has sex with 50 women, he's a stud, and if a woman does the same thing, she's, it's a negative, it's a pejorative.
Yeah, she's a slut, and now we are interpreting that word differently. Yeah.
Or even just how the Bible perceives women, you know what I mean? So the women have been like oppressed for so long that they weren't allowed to show their sexuality in a way that was society approved it. So
I never understood that when people would read the Bible, especially women, and come across like Lot's wife being turned into seasoning simply for looking back, and then Lot gets to boink his daughters and shit. And they just blow right through that like it's no big deal. How do you read that and not think, what the fuck am I reading? What is this shit?
Well, it's a lot of mental gymnastics. And I would say from my experience, because I was a practicing evangelical for quite some time.
Condolences.
Oh, Thank you. I have since recovered. There is any maybe bad choice or thing that isn't super great for us that we do it for a reason. There's something that we're lacking. And so whatever drew someone to religion was important enough that they could say, I will put to the side all of these, my intelligence or my wokeness or whatever it is, because, for me, it was safety. So there was not a lot of experienced or perceived or even real safety in the life that I was living. And so church gave me all of this safety. And what I had to sacrifice was my own freedom. And then eventually realizing I was sacrificing other people's freedom and sacrificing my intellect. And it just became a balancing act of, I'll do that until I realize that's too costly. So I think that's where a lot of us...
And the other side of that is for those of us who are born into it, there's so much to lose.
Right,
by acknowledging the ridiculousness of the Bible. There's, loss of family, of connection, of community, of identity in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of reasons why people choose religion, but they are generally really painful choices to make. And so that's what part of why we're here each and every week talking about not just freedom and recovery from religion, but specifically how our sex lives, how our sexual identities can make that same recovery, and then how we can protect other folks who are being damaged by the church, by religion with a big R in so many ways.
Telling us that it's
were
wrong.
you really drawn? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, you said you were drawn to religion. Did I hear that correctly?
Oh, yes.
Were you really drawn? Because most of the people that I know that are religious, they were born into it. It was right on the table every morning. It was jammed down your throat.
Yeah, that wasn't my experience. I grew up in South Texas, in Houston, where in my community, going to church was actually one of the cool things you could do. I was not a cool kid. I was very awkward in middle school, and it was this thing that I could do with my friends. And then church had rules, and rules could keep you safe. And there were no rules in my life. And so church to me represented, if you do X, Y, and Z, you know the outcome. The outcome is God loves you and you're accepted and it's welcomed. And that sounds like a really great deal. And it took quite some time for me to understand, what you mean by you will be accepted is if you change who you are to fit these other standards. And I perhaps believed the rules or believed the literal interpretations of what people in religion were saying before I understood the implications. Yeah.
If God was real, it'd be a great deal. Eternity
For
in heaven.
some people.
Generally speaking.
I don't know about that. Think about it.
No,
Eternity.
it's not a great deal. No.
It depends on, there are aspects of it, certainly.
And also it depends on the teachings that you're being given. I was 14 when I entered into evangelical religion. So basically what I was being taught is someone loves you and someone accepts you and someone wants you. That's the thing that I, as a 14-year-old, had not been told before and really wanted. And so the accompanying messages were, okay, if somebody loves me and wants me and accepts me, I'll do whatever. It's pretty classical abusive conditioning.
I understand that part, but I've never. Well, I wasn't raised in religion, and I never.
Neither was I.
Drawn to it in any way. Anytime I would meet or be introduced to a preacher or a diehard religious type, I always saw them as kind of an unctuous version of Mr. Burns, rubbing his hands together, wanting to take advantage of you. But I don't see, I get, in one sense, I understand the idea of heaven as a positive, but you're talking about when you strip it away, if you don't look at it just as a salad bar Christian perspective where you take the nice bits, it's a divine North Korea, as Hitchens put it. You have this guy that's always watching you, even when you shit, which if that's not creeping you the fuck out, I don't know what is. All the time, you have to constantly bow to him and worship him and kiss his ass. Who the hell would want to live with that?
It reminds me of a creeper stalker ex-husband, right?
Yeah,
it's an abusive
it
relationship.
definitely comes down to how you brand it. But regardless of how you brand it or how it looks on its face or how it looks when you dive into it, it's built on a flawed premise. So even if we can sit here and debate about whether wouldn't it be great if the Christian God was real, or wouldn't it be wonderful if, the reality is there's no evidence to suggest that it does. And so that being the case, we have to wrestle with the reality that exists as it currently is.
Sure.
Well, yes, but I mean, from my perspective, and again, I live in a very Christian area, and I get that you hear it often said, and for the most part, I agree with it. Mm-hmm. In dealing with Christians, whatever the case may be, you do better being polite and trying to draw them to your side as opposed to being disrespectful or crude. But I think being disrespectful and crude has advantages as well, situational advantages. If you've been around, I'm sure all of you have been around a very noisy Christian, very brash, very arrogant about it.
Yeah, I've been one, frankly. Not proud of that. I'm just acknowledging the actuality of it.
Yeah.
Sure, and I understand it. But in my experience, people like that, you can't respond to them, or they don't respond to polite introspection or conversation. You have to be a dick. There was a guy that he was really over the top about abortion. No abortion, that's illegal, and women should go to prison for it and stuff like that. And right in front of everybody, I said, well, from my perspective, until you have a uterus, you can go fuck yourself with that shit. You don't get an opinion on that. I don't care what your God says. And I think more people need to do that, because the guy didn't speak to anybody for like 2 weeks. Mm. It shut him the fuck up. And then everybody else started kind of bashing on him too, because he deserved it.
Yeah, well, you know what? As you are diving beyond the atheist experience and Talk Heathen and all of this, get into the Atheist Experience Network list of programs. I mean, things like street epistemology and some of these other programs really do address how to have these conversations and what to be looking at. We here are mostly focused on how these forces affect our sexuality and our expression, our sexuality in a very broad sense, our expression of our gender, our connections to society, our families, and what that is allowed to look like. So I hope that you'll take a look and that you'll find something you like. And if there's something you don't see that you feel like you need or that is missing, please shoot us an email. We're sex@atheist-community.org, and we would love to hear from you or anybody else out there that is looking for something different, that has a question, or just feels like there's something that we should be talking about but aren't.
Yeah, the only message I would say to people, or if I could give one before I take off, is what you do with your tawdry wares is your business. It's nobody else's, and they can fuck off with that shit. Just it's your junk. Do what you want with it.
I think most of us would agree.
Generally in favor of people having freedom over their junk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy, and I appreciate you so much for giving us a call in.
I appreciate you taking my call. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
night. Before we get back into everything else, he touched on something that I think is kind of interesting, this idea of, I guess, that personal liberty and that privacy role, what two consenting adults do in the privacy of their own bedroom is, and I do appreciate all of that. We look at Lawrence versus Texas and all of these things, and I do believe in that idea that, consenting adults should have the right and the freedom and the privilege to have the sex lives, to have the lives, really, that they want in the privacy of their own home. But I feel like as we're talking about strip storytelling, we are looking at this sort of bigger picture of not just secretly, privately in the confines of your bedroom.
It doesn't have to be a secret.
Yeah.
In fact, we're really sort of, in the best way possible, exploiting that idea in our next show. Like I said, the theme was fantasy. And so one of the things that we're going to have available is audience members can write down their fantasies and put them in a little jar. And during intermission, we'll go through them and select a few to read. We've found that what's really powerful is to be able to display these things and say, that's okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I like working out. I can tell you that I really enjoy chocolate cake. And I can tell you that I love being rammed until ice cream, God's names, whatever God's names are. And none of those have to be weird, and sexy doesn't have to be a separate thing. And that would be something that we're really passionate about, is that we're not saying, oh, it's art, so it's not sexy. We're saying it's such sexy art, and love that, because some art is meaningful in other ways, but sexy is one powerful, important way to be meaningful.
Yeah, for sure. You're combining two beautiful things.
Right. So it does not have to be a secret. And if you follow any of my social media, you will see that I don't think anything about my sex life is a secret.
Not a whole lot of secrets there.
No. There's privacy, right? There are things that are important and intimate to my heart that I don't choose to share with everybody, but none of that is about like the positions I like or the toys I'm messing with at the time.
Well, with this, idea, I guess this idea of making people feel comfortable with their sexuality and all of that, talk to us a little bit more about, what it looks like on a practical level to, I guess, expand Naked Girls Reading into a more sex-positive or queer-accepting sort of space.
Yeah, so I would say that Naked Girls Reading was never sex negative, and it was never queer negative. It just wasn't explicitly for the queerdos.
Yeah.
It just wasn't explicitly for all of the sex positivity. And so we wanted to be explicit. We find that in this climate, if you don't say it, people don't know you believe it, and it doesn't really count as allyship. Because the implicit and often accepted norm is not okay. And you have to say, I'm not okay with this norm. This is not good for us. So we draw some rules for the safety of performers. We, say put away your phones. You're not allowed to take pictures, but we'll have a photographer present. And if you want, you can purchase a photo with all of the performers. You can come on stage and get one, and the photographer will deliver that to you. So we try in as many ways as possible within the space to say, we are naked, and that's great. We did it on purpose. You're not peeping. You paid for this, and we wanted to give it to you. And if you have reactions to that you want to share with us, we are open in certain ways. You can slide into our DMs, and we'll decide whether or not we respond to that. But just to say, this is playful, this is fun. Do you want a snack? Because we have those available. And as freely as we can be naked and happy, that is how much we give permission to do so. So that's really where we say the sex positivity that we can show is here we are in all of our glory and in all different forms. And so part of what we're doing is really choosing performers that show different body types, different abilities, different, we're going to try, we are really highlighting maybe invisible illness or a mental illness and saying, you can still be naked and have fun. You can be anyone and be naked and have fun. Or you can choose to not be naked and not have sex and still be excited about naked people or sex.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is there any, safety things that you have to worry about? Did you ever have any, stalkery situations?
Well, we're pretty vigilant, and Austin is a big city, but a small town.
It is.
So
Feel that in my bones.
Right. So in many ways, there was a concern that came up recently with one of our performers who had experienced some really negative interactions with someone who was in the burlesque community. And so again, I just feel like I have to say this very explicitly. We are not burlesque, and many of the burlesque performers I know want me to be so explicit about that. This is not that. This is just naked. We're not getting naked. We start that way. But so this performer said, hey, there's someone, I'm worried. I don't want to sound like a gossip. And I said, no, all of the producers in town want to hear this. And all of us will make our own decisions, but please help us to make an informed one. And she said who it was. And I was like, oh, I've already put that person on blast on Facebook and on Instagram after they cyberstalked me. Not only is that person not going to be performing with us, they're not allowed at the shows. So there's really no punches pulled. Is that how you say that?
Nobody's pulling their punches. Yeah.
Right. What I'm trying to say is we're not afraid to say
that sounds right.
If this does not feel safe, you don't get to be here.
Yeah.
And really prioritizing those marginalized voices.
Right. But I mean, even in the audience, recurring audience members that became
we've had some people be
they're not for the reading.
We're okay if they're there and they just want to see some naked bodies as long as they don't make anyone feel bad about it. And when they do, they're no longer invited back, and it's explicit.
That's good.
Yeah.
That vulnerability is dangerous in a way, and there's
Sure.
something very radical about it, and I think that's why it's so powerful.
Right.
Is the fact that it is such a significant departure from the safeties, at least the
Absolutely.
veneer of safeties in our daily life. But yeah, it does come with some added risk.
Yeah, and we take that seriously even when it comes to performers. You know, I don't want to get someone on stage who's going to be I want to say a dick. You know, I'm just going to say a dick because that's the way that's occurring to me.
Yeah.
He's going to be a dick to the other performers. And so one of the things that we ask is please come work with us before you perform. Let us get to know you. If it's not on this stage, many of us perform in other capacities. So let us get to know you and make sure that you're someone safe to be in the dressing room with these other nude performers. So we do take it very seriously, and we're sort of hawks. And there's always
I wouldn't say weird. I mean, safety is never weird. It's always, you have to be.
we're intense about it. We are, I would say, hyper-vigilant in a way that is not a problem. So usually diagnostically we would say hyper is too much, and we're like, no, we won't be hyper with this
Just the
vigilance.
right amount of
That's
extreme
right.
vigilance.
We will look at you with all the powerful eyes. And I tell you what, being scolded by a naked person is incredibly powerful. So if a naked
it
person
is.
on stage is like, excuse me,
Yeah.
calm the fuck down, we haven't had anyone like come back with that bullshit they missed
Yeah,
us
for-
with it the next time.
I have to admit, I just discovered a kink I didn't know I had.
I'm like
I'm gonna have
picturing
to
that
learn
in my
to
head.
Google
I'm picturing
that.
you
Yeah.
standing there
Find the
yelling
search
at some
terms.
guy. Like I'm just picturing it. I can totally see it happening.
Yeah. And usually all it takes is just a pair of stern eyes, and then it never happens again. But if it goes beyond that, we're not afraid to say, creepy audience member, you are not the prioritized voice here.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of existing in this sort of. I mean, you charge admission. There's money exchanging hands, but nobody, to my understanding, is getting rich off of this show. You know, there's an artistic perspective. There's a
Absolutely.
value forward, I think,
Right.
perspective, and it is about the passion. And I think that really changes priorities in a way that might be different again at a strip club or at a more conventional sexualized space.
Yeah, and we do prioritize. We're always the first thing that we're going to do is pay all of our debts. So we pay for the space and we pay for the lights and blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to make sure that we can pay the performers. And then if there's anything left, we do prioritize being able to like pay the producers for their labor, which is a lot. But we're also focusing on like what is a price point that allows us to pay performers for what they're doing, but also allows people to come in. So one of the ways that we navigate that is we have pay what you can tickets. So if someone knows that they want to come and they can't afford the price point online, then all they have to do is email us and reserve a ticket. And whatever they pay when they get to the door is welcomed and accepted, and that is one of the ways that we want to make it acceptable or accessible.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful perspective. I actually didn't realize that y'all offered something along those
Yeah,
lines.
we just started last show, and it was really great. And part of the reason we're able to do that is because we have such an amazing audience that shows up for us every time. And so we know, okay, we've got our bills paid. And so we can say our bills are paid. Hey, you want to come in? We've had we have amazing sponsors. So much of what we're doing for this next show is sponsored just by people who love us and love what we do, including people who have never come to the show and honestly never will. But they're like, that is important. I
still
want it
support
to
it.
happen. I can't show up for it, but I want it to continue existing. So please take my money or my goods. And we're like, we will. We will take your money and
absolutely.
goods.
It's
Yeah,
great.
right,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Now, how many people are like at a show, like in your audience?
It depends on the space. I wasn't there when we were at the Vanguard, so I'm not sure. At our current space, between 50 and 70 audience members a show.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. We like them. Thank you, people.
Well, whether it is somebody who is coming with a sense of passion, who's like willing to send an email and then just pay out of their pocket, or a sponsor who's passionate about it, or some asshole fan, creepy stalker person.
Sure.
What has been your experience interacting with the audience? I mean, how has the community, engaged with y'all? Do people, when you meet them on an elevator, feel, uncomfortable or confused? Or are they enthusiastic?
No, it's so weird. It's so weird. I'll be out in public and meet people, and they'll be like, "Oh, I follow you on Instagram," and I'm like, "My Instagram is mostly my ass," and they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it is.
they're just into it." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." I mean, most of my captions are about liberation work and helping people in whatever
It's easy
manner
to
that I'm
scroll
going
past
through.
that.
Sure, right, absolutely. You just give a heart for an ass.
The ass is the way to grab their attention,
Yeah.
to read your
Come for the ass,
true.
stay for the enlightenment.
Yeah, grabbing my ass is the way that you get my attention if there's consent involved.
Right.
No, I am always surprised at, in any form, when you give freedom to people to show up, how grateful they are for it. And so in nudity and sexuality, I'm literally positive there are people who have unfriended me or unfollowed me or who don't come to the shows and kind of make it a point to say, oh my gosh, did you know what Booksy was doing? This is so horrible.
You're going to have those people no matter what you do.
That's really the logic behind it. It's
it
like
doesn't
when
matter what you're doing.
Right.
It's always going to have that somebody, that one person,
Yeah.
even two people that are just be like, I don't like you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. And to those people,
Shut the fuck
well, see, I don't even need them to shut the fuck up. They're not paying anyway. They're not going to show up at my show. So it's like, cool, do what works for you. I understand. I've been in places that were not liberated spaces before, and I was willing to sacrifice not only my freedom, but the freedom of other people for the safety that I perceived. And I just don't feel a strong need to damn those people for what they're doing. Instead, I say, like, you're probably going to unfollow me, or if you hate follow me, whatever, that probably helps me, like, be seen on social media and get my message out anyway. So I'm just cool with it.
I don't even hate follow people. I'm just like, you know what? I don't need this in my life anymore.
That is a very balanced perspective that not everyone shares.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to, you got to clear out the clutter in your life.
Sure, absolutely.
If it's
I
bringing
feel
you
that way.
negativity, you just got to let it go.
Yeah. That's very powerful, Elsa. I agree.
Well, I guess any final word, anything that we haven't maybe talked about, that's just your experiences in this whole circumstance. I mean, it is such an interesting space that you've sort of created and slash curated and just been a part of and participated in.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you bring up the word curate because one practice of people who are sort of wordy is we choose a word for the year. And so being a biracial person, I chose curate / curate. So curate is like to heal it, and curate is to carefully select. And so that's really been the mission of strip storytelling this year. Maybe mission is not a really helpful word in this. It has been our goal to carefully select the way that we are presenting and what we are presenting in such a way that it heals the community, that it creates a space that can be embodied well and helpfully. So, yeah, I as a producer, as a showrunner, I don't even know where we're going to go with this, but we're going to keep going in a liberated and diverse experience that we want people to enjoy and grow from. What, like physically you could grow when you're in the audience, like, mentally or spiritually, whatever feels good to you.
I feel like your pun was better than mine. I was gonna point out that, as y'all are moving forward, you don't necessarily have a lifelong vision. You're kind of flying by the seat of your no pants.
No,
Yeah.
there's nothing up our sleeves.
That was
we don't
good. It's good.
Please.
Yeah.
Full credit to that.
I would just say, come let us read to you. You will be very moved by it, and we will be honored to be able to move you in whatever way. And we can make all of the sex puns, and we do. Like if you follow us on Instagram, we do. But it is, even from an atheist perspective, as close to a holy experience as I can describe for anyone.
Yeah, I definitely hear that.
Naked and unafraid, and to be with people and intentionally sharing is so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah, I bet you it is, because there's no way I could do it.
But you could come, you could let us be naked with you.
Yeah, for sure. I could watch it. I mean, that would be not a problem at all. Like, that's the non-issue. I would find it probably very interesting. I love reading. So, yeah.
I know. That's my whole name is about that.
I know, Booksy.
Well, and I appreciate the nakedness, the vulnerability of it all. But I think we'd be remiss if I didn't point out the incredible showmanship that also goes into creating these spaces.
Oh, sure.
The setting the mood, the
Lighting,
lights, the candles,
sound,
the music.
Absolutely.
And I guess we kind of wanted to honor a little bit of that showmanship tonight and give our audience just a little bit of a taste of a Naked Girls reading experience.
Sure.
Gonna go ahead and set the mood here a little bit.
Yeah, we're all going to watch me read very badly, because I'm probably going to go last.
Oh.
No, that's okay. We get to listen to you first, though. It's going to be
Okay.
good.
Thank you for being here with me. I want to share a little word from Ezekiel 16:17. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. Good job.
That was good.
Yeah, right? Yeah, now I'm forced to try and follow the professional. So we just wanted to take a moment and I guess show how even the worst-ish piece of literature in the right hands can have a certain gravitas to it.
Use the tools you've been given.
Right? And now a reading from Romans 1:25 through 28. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. Let me take this jacket off. In the same way also, the men giving up natural intercourse with women were consumed with passion for one another. Men committed shameless acts with men and received in their own persons the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do not what ought not be done.
Man, I'm doomed.
Really.
That's some good Bible, right?
Well, it's
Sounds
not
like
good
a
Bible.
really
but, like,
great Saturday night. Thank you, God,
was a
for
really
giving us
good read.
over the thing.
I would really like to give over to some lustful feelings a little more regularly.
Okay, so now I don't have one of these tablets in front of me. You pick which one you want me to read.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that there for you.
If two men, a man and his countrymen, are struggling together, and the wife of one comes near to deliver her husband from the hand of one who is striking him, and puts out her hand and seizes his genitals, then you shall cut off her hand. You shall not show pity.
That one really hurts me.
It really does.
From an empath perspective, I want to grab his genitals. He wants me to grab his genitals.
Right? He does. He
Why
wants
are
it.
you cutting off my hand?
But like in a
wanted it.
good way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, depending on your kink. Always good, not always painless.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I like that. I like that. Well, I believe that's the end of our show. I do really appreciate you coming and joining us tonight, and everybody out in the audience for joining us as well. I hope that you will take a look. Where can folks find out more about strip storytelling or even participate in something near them?
Yeah, so we're strip storytelling on everything that you're going to look for. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Tomorrow, we're actually doing a live. The other two showrunners and I are going to be Facebook Live, so facebook.com/strip storytelling. And we're going to be answering whatever questions you want to bring up there. Probably, I don't know, if you come up with a question we don't want to answer, we're pretty sassy, so we're just not going to answer it.
Heyo.
And then our next show is July 6th at Sky Candy Austin. And so you can go to the link in our Instagram to buy tickets or just search Strip Storytelling on brown paper tickets. And come see us. We won't have clothes on.
Come see all of you.
Come see all of us, please.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have links to all of that in the show notes and the comments at the bottom of the episode. Otherwise, I just really want to thank Michele for joining us on camera tonight.
Thank you for letting me ask all these questions
Right?
and getting the answers. Thank you.
Satisfying a little curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Booksy, for being here. Thank you to everybody out there. And I guess we would just take this moment to remind everybody that, you know, whether it is with a book, whether you're by yourself or in front of an audience, no matter where you do it or how you do it, we just want to encourage everybody to give themselves a big old orgasm. Or better yet, Give somebody else one.
As long as it's not a creepy stalker.
Unless that's your kink.
Yeah, hold on. Credits aren't done.